Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, will there be a budget deal in the Maryland General Assembly? County executive proposes another 3.5 cent increase in the property tax. County residents at odds over workforce housing, and one state thinks that Trump derangement syndrome should be classified as a mental disease. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by former House of Delegate member and attorney Maricé Morales, and Helene Meister, a member of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. In Maryland, the law that requires the state to have a balanced budget each year is the Maryland Constitution, specifically Article 3, Section 52. This provision mandates that the governor submit a balanced budget to the Maryland General Assembly each year. It ensures that the state's expenditures do not exceed its revenues, meaning that the state cannot spend more than it earns. Going into the 2025 legislative session of the General Assembly, it was well known that the revenue projections were at least $3 billion below the amount needed to balance the budget on paper. As a result, the governor and the General Assembly have been working on a package of tax hikes to balance the budget. According to Senate President Bill Ferguson, the situation is very fluid, including a sales tax on some services. Maricé, when you were in the legislature, did you have to go through anything like this?
Absolutely not. So between 2014 and 2018, when I was in the House, we did not have any kind of issue dealing with, I guess, the time constraints, right, that they're dealing with now. However, in 2012 and as late as 2024, there was the need for an extension, so an extended session to complete those negotiations, because, as you well stated, the Constitution of Maryland does require us to balance that budget. That said, we know that we have until the 83rd day. If we're not anywhere near that, then the governor can ask for a day, like a 10-day extension, or they can ask for a new session after they leave on sine die. But as is, I did not experience that.
So, what's fascinating is even this morning, I was alerted by my trade association, the Maryland Land Title Association, that new fees are going to be imposed on even being able to look at and copy things from the State Department of Assessments and Taxation website, which is expected to bring in millions of dollars each year. Up till now, all of these services have been free. So, the governor's tax proposal is not just directed at the millionaire's tax or a tax increase on capital gains or an increase actually by decoupling from the federal estate tax. It's going to make more Marylanders open to a state tax. So, Helene, part of the budget deficits comes from the unfunded mandates related to the blueprint for Maryland's future. But polling data shows that Marylanders, while they generally support education, they're worn out for taxes. What's the solution here?
Well, the solution is fiscal responsibility, but it seems like it's an answer that no one wants to hear. The state should have planned for this deficit to happen, the 3.1 billion deficit. There was a $5 million surplus coming out of Mary Hogan. So they should have planned that they would be lacking funds and did not plan accordingly. So now they're faced with only drastic spending cuts and tax increase, and that is the issue at hand. Is that they're planning for 2.3 budget cuts, but they haven't detailed what are those spending cuts. So we don't know what they're going to cut, because they're not going to cut the disability department spending. So we don't know what they're going to cut, and they're planning for 1.6 billion in tax increase, among which, what you said, the higher tax rates on higher brackets, and also on IT tax on data service centers and information technology systems, and other taxes, in addition to that. So now the Maryland families and businesses are going to have to shoulder the cost, shoulder that 3.1 deficit, because we don't know what they're going to cut. So we're going to have to pay for this deficit, and that's hurting businesses. That's hurting small businesses because pass-through entities and S corps, that they don't pay corporate tax. They pay personal income tax, right? So they will pay those increases, and also families will have also to shoulder some of the burden.
You've listed a long list of things, and Maricé, again, taxes on the wealthy, taxes on cannabis, gaming, data services. Are we going to see a lot of services being taxed, you think, as the final budget gets shaken out in the next 3 weeks?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Governor Moore has stated, that he does not agree with the business-to-business taxes. And as I was speaking to some of the business community, representatives, lobbyists, et cetera, the retailers, they're very concerned because this attempt was taken up by the Pennsylvania legislature, and actually it ended up being shouldered by the grocers, which then was passed down to the consumers. So I think that I think that Bill Ferguson and Ben Barnes have been savvy and not really responding too much, as negotiations are fluid. But I think that the governor has actually really responded to the efforts from the business community in terms of, when I was in the legislature, this was an issue, and I'm glad that the Democratic Party is finally really addressing kind of like day-to-day issues that consumers and voters really care about at the end of the day.
Well, they may care about them. Tired of being taxed to death, Maricé. Honestly, come on.
Hey, I'm on your side on this one, Casey. Come on now.
Well, the question that I get asked all the time is, how did we, go from having a budget surplus to being so far in the hole? So we're not going to solve that right now because we have to go on to our next topic. But that's the question on everybody's mind is, how did we get here, and how much is it going to cost us individually when we make these changes? So just save that thought till the next time you're on, Maricé.
Happy to. I can respond now, but I'm following. Yes, exactly.
Jake is about to turn off the microphone. So anyway, we're going to have more fun because, there's the great thing about Montgomery County and our county executive, Marc Elrich, is that he loves spending other people's money. And he loves increasing taxes and fees on Montgomery County residents and business every single chance he gets. And this year, he may have outdone himself. Not only did Mr. Elrich propose a 3.5-cent property tax increase funding for our underachieving public school system, but he's also recommending a $50 million increase in the design of a new resource recovery facility. And for those who don't know what that means the dump and how to get rid of our trash that's going to replace the incinerator in Dickinson. And under the proposal, and this is just amazing, under the proposal, $36 million is going to be used to design the facility, even though they haven't selected a location or know where they're going to put it. So Maricé, county executive, let's face it, he's a lame duck. He's going to be out of office soon. And there are several members, not going to mention anybody right now, on the county council eager to run in next year's election. And is this a losing political strategy by the county executive, as evidenced by Andrew Friedson's quick response stating his opposition to the tax increase?
Well, all jokes aside, we are dealing with some very hard issues, especially with President Trump signing an illegal executive order to eliminate the Department of Education. So there will be issues that we as county residents will have to address. But going to the question of whether Marc Elrich is a lame duck and if this is a strategy or not, because he's a lame duck at this point, some people care about their legacy. Others, at this point, I think he's probably just answering to the loudest to the loudest people in the choir, I guess. We know that the Board of Ed did ask for I think there was like a $10 million increase to their budget, and Marc has been known to jump as high as they ask him to jump. And obviously that means that, he has to come up with the numbers. Now, I don't think that this is very savvy of him to continue to put it on the homeowners. And I think Andrew Friedson is absolutely jumping on that opportunity, especially because he is positioning himself to run for county executive. But the issue on these incinerator as well, Marc also ran on the progressive values of the environmental issues, et cetera. But I don't know how you reconcile, wanting to, be strategic and efficient with our tax dollars about where our waste will go, but then also, using $36 million of tax revenue to design another operating facility that's supposed to replace the incinerator. I mean, at this point, I mean, where's that coming from? Is he answering to some other kind of lobbying effort? I'm not sure, but it's kind of left field. And I think at this point there may not be any strategy. I think he's just responding to the loudest people kind of, getting on his calendar at this point.
He's now talking about that he's going to run for an at-large seat when his term is up. So, I don't know Mr. Elrich very well. I've met him a couple of times. I don't think he cares. I mean, I think he's got, his agenda, and he does what he wants to do. But, the question about education is always fascinating because we have a declining enrollment in Montgomery County. We have about 1,000 less students than we did the year before, and it continues to decline since the COVID years. And also, our test scores aren't improving. So, throwing more money at education may not be the answer. Helene, in response to Mr. Elrich, proposal, Reardon Sullivan, who is the chair of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, has proposed a county charter amendment that would limit increases in county spending increases to the consumer price index. And political gadfly Robin Ficker also has a proposal to limit property taxes to the rate of inflation. So is there enough sentiment in the county that will support either of those two proposals, do you think?
I think that it's totally possible that people will, sign up for those petitions. I believe that, the outlook of looking at spending instead of looking at tax increase is very interesting from our chairman. I like that idea to limit the spending, to limit the spending percentage increase to the prior consumer price index. So it's very interesting because it targets spendings instead of targeting tax increase.
Well, I think the response has been fairly interesting, and I think there's going to be more. When the last tax increase proposal for property taxes was offered by Mr. Elrich, the county council cut it back severely, and so we'll see what happens when the county council first takes this up. When we come back from this short break, why are residents divided over an increase in workforce housing? And one state considers Trump derangement syndrome a mental disease. Stay tuned.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now I'm anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure love.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back. If there's anything most county residents would agree on is that there is an insufficient supply of affordable housing in Montgomery County. Yet during a most recent public hearing over the More Housing Now legislative package, which would allow more residential building types, including duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, and apartments in heavy transit zones, with a specific set aside of 15% of the housing to serve local workforce, there were some that opposed the proposal because such development would encroach on existing neighborhoods. Maricé, even if the critics are right that this proposal may not meet the goal of 15% workforce housing, isn't the goal admirable that we need to increase our housing stock?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's definitely worth supporting. We have a severe housing shortage that's also driving the prices up. We need to build more housing everywhere. I mean, I think we've been echoing that for a while. And the impact on single family homes will be spread out throughout the county. So only one community will be overwhelmed by the duplexes and the triplexes. That I know that's the biggest issue on some of the homeowner associations' minds, and folks that have been here 30, 40 years and want to keep their single home communities intact. And for reference, we've only built out about 200 accessory dwelling units countywide in the last 10 years. So, to say that, we're up in arms because all these duplexes and triplexes are taking over the character of the county is, I would say is definitely not accurate at all. Also, we should be converting some of our commercial and those aging office buildings that it's a ghost town at this point, since now we're moving to a remote kind of workforce economy. We should be using that space as well for housing potential. And lastly, and this is actually a creative idea that I hadn't really thought about until I reached out to the realtors and the IOBA people. I prep before these sessions with you, Casey. And so I like to include all the different voices. But the other idea is to tear down McMansions and then make those into triplexes and duplexes. I hate McMansions, so hey, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Well, here are the facts. We add about 2,500 units a year to the housing stock, which is insufficient to meet the increasing population demands of the county.
Right. So
we have to find a way to increase the housing stock and make it affordable. And Helene, between 2014 and 2018, a significant housing gap was identified by the Planning Commission, and that for households earning up to 65% of the area median income. We're not meeting that goal. So, is it a way that we can increase the housing stock as well and balance the interests of regular homeowners?
Well, we do have the issue that housing costs are rising in Montgomery County, and people actually leaving the county because of that. So I have to say that I'm a little confused about the policy in the county, because we're saying on the one hand, because we have the county executive, Marc Elrich, he's against new rezoning and those ZTA and those new corridors, building multifamily units in those new corridor. And then on the other hand, we're saying, well, if you invest in Maryland, you're not going to pay more property tax. You're going to pay more in recordation tax. We're going to also cap the rent. So we're saying to people, don't invest in Maryland. But in the same time, we're saying, well, no, it's not good to build new housing. I mean, our county executive says it's not good to build new housing. So it's very conflicting. The policies are very conflicting. And I think like the county is a little bit shooting itself in the foot. Like it has to, make a decision about where it really wants to go. Does it want to build more housing? Does it want the state to be attractive? Does it want people to have houses? Or does it want to keep on making housing affordable in Maryland?
As Howie Dennis, who was a longtime, he was a member of the county council and a longtime supporter of Connie Morella, used to say, here in Montgomery County, we hate our taxes, but we love our services. So this is the conflict that we all have, and we try to balance it out. But I think it's an admirable attempt to create and identify and expand the housing stock here in Montgomery County, this new plant. So I think it's a good venture. Now, let's talk about the last topic. And let's face it, whether you are a supporter of President Trump or you just can't stand President Trump, there is one common thread. Every day, without fail, he will do something or say something that drives you crazy. But are you really crazy? Maricé, I know where you're going. When legislators in Minnesota, of all places, have legislation that expands the definition of mental illness to include Trump derangement syndrome. What do you think of that, Maricé? Do we need treatment?
I like that this is a lighthearted topic. I feel like, this all of the Trump madness needs to actually be addressed. But to answer the question, I think it's flattering President Trump with this derangement syndrome, because it was actually taken up by supporters of Bush back in the day, and I would have President George W. Bush before President Trump any day, and I would not normalize our actually justified paranoia against just all of these erratic decisions that the president is making, and it's negatively impacting all the ways of American living at this point.
That's what Maricé, supporters of President Trump says he's playing three-dimensional chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Helene, what do you think of this proposal? Are we suffering from Trump derangement syndrome?
I don't know. Apparently, it's entertaining people in Minnesota to have a proposal like this in their legislation. I think it's entertaining. But I mean, I have to admit that people often overreact, to President Trump remarks or policy or even presence. When people tend to overreact, so when people are very emotional, they tend to look irrational, and I guess that's where the Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, we're run out of time. But as I said, whether you love the man or you hate the man, he does something every day that keeps you going. Stay tuned for Parting Shots when we come back from this short break.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand, trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back. Now with Parting Shots, Maricé Morales.
All jokes aside, it is time to get a little serious. Read up on authoritarianism. And this is in response to the illegal executive order signed by President Trump to eliminate the Department of Education. It's not rocket science. It's part of the playbook. You get rid of the education system in a country. You get rid of the scholars and the young people who will speak against authoritarianism. And that's exactly what President Trump is doing off of his Project 2025 plans that he said that he was never a part of.
Well, thank you, Maricé. Helene Meister, this is your first opportunity for a parting shot. What do you have?
Yes.
What do you have to say?
No, my closing statement is focusing on Maryland because, I run in Maryland for state delegate, and my concern is first our state issues. And, even before President Trump came into office, Maryland has those issues, and Maryland is at crossroads. It's facing economic challenges and fiscal instability right now. We have a $3 billion deficit that's going to swell potentially to $6 billion. And what we're saying is that we're going to solve that by increasing taxes all over in the county and in the state. So I'm saying, like, what do we want? We know what kind of state do we want in the future? We want to be an attractive state for businesses and family to come and be business friendly and foster growth, or do we want to keep on having harmful policies that's going to hurt family and businesses?
Well, thank you, Helene. I want to thank you both for being here. And you did a great job, Helene, for your first appearance on 21 this week. Thank you for volunteering. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.